So now I'm going to invite up Michael Kent, who is the Ombudsman with Contra Costa County Hazardous Materials Commission. Michael Kent has been the Ombudsman for that commission for the last 21 years. I didn't realize that, Michael. 21 years. His job is to respond to questions and concerns about the activities of that program and to serve as a resource on environmental pollution issues for county residents. In addition, he staffs the county's Hazardous Materials Commission and Advisory Board to the County Board of Supervisors. He also provides support to the Public Health Department on issues such as environmental justice, air pollution, and climate change, and represents the Health Department in regional health and environmental collaboratives. And he is the co-chair of Bay Area Regional Health Inequities Initiatives Built Environment Committee. Notice I stumbled over my own organization's name. And Michael, I think just to go off script a little bit, has also just been very instrumental in going above and beyond and outside of his kind of like regular duties to try to think really creatively about how to connect up programs and how to really maximize the impacts, particularly for health equity. So my pleasure to bring up Michael Kent.
Okay, great. My program is next. Okay, I turned it back on. What I'm going to talk about is a pilot project that we did that chronologically actually predated the effort that Damien just described, working with MCE and GHHI to develop our business model for our asthma and home trigger checkup program. So this was really the effort that led to what Damien's doing, but we just couldn't do it in chronological order. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. So I'm going to start with what you've already heard from Will and Linda laid the groundwork. And I just want to emphasize this because this is the framework that at a local health department we're working within. The impacts of climate change are going to disproportionately impact vulnerable populations already suffering health inequities. And so from my perspective, if you're at a local health department working on climate change issues, if you're not trying to do this, you're doing the wrong thing. This is what we need to be doing at local health departments around climate change. And so this is the framework that I'm working on in terms of all the work that I do on climate change. So a number of years ago, a bunch of us at the health department got together and said, hey, we ought to be working on climate change. What do we do? And we did a number of things. One that Damien mentioned, we did a health co-benefit analysis of our climate action plan. Will and I worked on that. We did some other projects around sea level rise. But lately, because Will left and our epidemiologist we worked with left, it was just me, and I had to find something that I could do on my own. And I should mention, most health departments, actually all but one, don't have dedicated funding to work on climate change. This is something that I kind of do and fit into my job under the other duties as described designation that you probably all have in your job description. So, and I'm going to talk a little bit about more how we ended up on that. But one of the last projects we worked on before Will left was to do a climate change vulnerability assessment of the county. And we focused on heat, because that's something that's already impacting people in our county. Heat is something that, 2006, we had a major heat wave in California that killed thousands of people. And so we focused on that. And, it showed this slide. One of the things we, came up with is where in the areas of the county do we see people most vulnerable to heat? And we used a bunch of indicators to derive at this, socioeconomic, physical, and other indicators. And you'll notice both the slides that Damien put up and other slides that were put up, this overlaps with income, this overlaps with where our minority populations are, and that's because those are some of the variables. But the important point is, we do have differences, inequities, in vulnerability in the county to heat. I should see if I can get this thing to work. Mention just, I don't know. Oh well. Oops. I can't get the pointer. Oh, there it goes. So in West County, it's mostly low-income minority communities. East County, mostly minority income communities. This little aberration down here, That's Rossmore. It's a senior citizens community of 10,000 seniors. That's why it pops up. So, you know, it's not always matches up with income, but mostly. So this next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about my own personal experience. On that map of San Francisco where you had all the little dots that didn't match up with the freeways in the low-income areas, I'm probably one of those dots where I live in Alameda, because I went through PG&E's rebate program, market rate rebate program, a number of years ago. And, you know, that even though I got a rebate, it still cost me thousands of dollars. So obviously something not within the reach of most low-income people. But this is my experience with that. In the home I lived in from 2004 to 7, I was averaging 655 therms a year of gas usage. 2008, I got a new furnace, replaced my 40-year-old furnace, got a new tankless water heater, dropped my gas usage 29%. Then in 2013, I went through PG&E's rebate program, totally weatherized my home, dropped it another 37%. So a 56% reduction in gas usage from when I moved in to now, about a $40 a month saving. Now, $40 a month, quite honestly, is not a huge deal to me, but can you imagine if you're living off $1,000 a month, spending $700 of that on rent, $40 a month, a huge amount of money, could be the difference between having enough to eat or paying your medicine. But what I noticed from that personally, I'm going to talk about in a second, but the whole reason I'm talking about my personal experience, and, you know, you mentioned people aren't excited about weatherization stuff. Well, I'm one of those people that was. And so, you know, the guy who did the work, let me follow him around, let me, you know, watch him while he was doing the pressure testing, the infrared, you know, monitoring of everything. And that's what really got me interested in the whole idea of doing weatherization, because I saw personally the benefits to myself. What did I see? Well, obviously it reduced my energy consumption, but it also kept my house cooler. The first day of the heat wave, okay, so I live in Alameda, doesn't normally get hot there, so hardly anyone has air conditioning. I don't have air conditioning. You know, I got home at night, that first night, it's 96 degrees outside because we had kept our house closed up and shuttered that day. It was only 76 inside my house, 20 degrees difference in heat. So that's a huge difference in the summer if you don't have air conditioning. And if you do have air conditioning, it's going to really help with your energy bill. Again, you know, reducing energy costs leaves more for essentials. Keeping the particulate matter out. When I went to clean my air filter, how many people here clean their air filter once a month like you're supposed to? Yeah, I didn't think so. Neither do I. So after like 3 months when I went to do it, after I got my, after the installation, I noticed my air filter was really clean compared to how it used to be. It used to be much more dirty. So by plugging up all those cracks and crevices in my house, it really made it cleaner. It can keep out moisture, which helps reduce with insects and mold, which are both asthma triggers. So Will had talked about this, the social determinants of health. Where we want to be working is on this side, you know, addressing the physical, living conditions, et cetera. But what health departments mainly do is work on that other side. So my goal as working in the health department, wanting to do something about heat and climate change, is how do I bridge those two? What can we do? Because health departments don't necessarily work on this side. We work over here. So what could I do? So we tried a few ways to connect our health department to energy efficiency services. They didn't work out so well. But then finally, we came upon this idea of working through our public health nurses. Because in the health department, we have a large public health nursing program that goes in and does home medical visits to people. And we thought, well, you know, they're in people's homes every day. They can see the conditions. What if we rely on them to help us figure out, you know, who would be good people to refer over to our weatherization program? Here are people, medically vulnerable people, who we think are going to benefit the most from weatherization. So we went to them and said, hey, would you be interested in learning about our county weatherization program? Because none of them had ever heard of it before. As Damien said, we run the LIHEAP program. At the same time, we went to our energy efficiency program and said, hey, would you like referrals from clients who we know are going to really benefit from your programs? And Laura Glass, our program manager, said, yeah, that would be great. And so we put them together. Then we started working with also not just, and they do the LIHEAP program, but we started working with Bill DeGreen, who implements the LIWIP program. And the state health department graciously funded us to write this up as a pilot project. I'll talk about that a little bit later, and provided the services of RAMP, the Regional Asthma Management and Prevention Program, to help coordinate all of us. So we started this program where, now I don't know if you can follow this, but basically public health nurses, when they went into somebody's home and saw that they could be a good client for weatherization, they did referrals. And either they helped the clients fill out the applications themselves, or they referred them to me and I would help them fill out their applications. And then I would decide if they were in a disadvantaged community, we would refer them over to LIWIP. If not, we would refer them over to LIHEAP. And then they went through the programs. And we tried to do some cross referrals. Some of our clients who were in multifamily buildings, but we were only addressing their one unit, I referred them over to the multifamily provider to see if they maybe could do the whole building, because I could tell the whole building potentially needed it. So what were the results? We did 7 training sessions with the nurses throughout the whole process. We did one very intensive detail one at first, and I went and did follow-ups with them to kind of keep them interested, kind of talk about the successes we had. We developed screening questions for them. So when they first come into a home, they do a whole home assessment. We added some questions about weatherization to help them identify clients who make maybe good referrals. Initially, we got 32 referrals from 17 different nurses, and we were able to complete 8 of those referrals to go through the program. Unfortunately, and we talked about lessons learned, I'll skip down to that second one since I'm sort of already on that. Securing landlord permission was kind of an impediment, and that's mostly my guess. I mean, we only had a couple of landlords that flat out said no, but a lot of times we send the application over and it just never heard back from them, or the client said they would send them to the landlord and never did, and I'm guessing it's because they were concerned that their landlord might be upset about it. So we really think that landlord education, more working with landlords so they understand the program, the benefits, that it doesn't cost them anything, that they're not going to get a code enforcement violation is really critical. Assistance in filling out applications is really critical. Most of the people we're dealing with are either medically very vulnerable or someone in their family is. That's why they have a public health nurse. The last thing they want to do is fill out a bunch of forms for a program they may or may not see the immediate benefits for. So having me go out and help them fill out their application, pull the paperwork together, work them through the process, I think is really important. And again, as Michelle mentioned, a need for a comprehensive approach, flexible funding, pooling of resources is really critical. This is the report that RAMP did, writing up the results of this. So hopefully any energy efficiency program in any county can partner with their health department, kind of pulling these 2 programs together. And this is a good roadmap for how to do that. This year, we're continuing the work along with the assistance of our Civic Spark Fellow, Susan Fu, who's now doing outreach to about 14 other programs within the health department and employment and human services that also interact with people in their homes, because we think, that we can get the same kind of referral process over from them. And that's it. Thank you.